Welcome back to Echoes Untold, the channel where the line between history and mystery fades away. Today, we step into the eerie shadows of one of the most baffling modern mysteries of the 21st century. A man vanishes without a trace, only to be found days later in a place no one can explain. This is the story of Rey Rivera, a promising young man with dreams, plans, and a bright future, whose life ended in circumstances so bizarre, they've puzzled investigators, conspiracy theorists, and his loved ones for nearly 2 decades. Was it suicide, murder, or something much stranger? Let's dive into the mystery of Rey Rivera. Reynaldo Rivera was 32 years old in May of 2006, living in Baltimore, Maryland, with his wife, Allison. Originally from California, Rey was a writer, filmmaker, and former water polo player, known for his easy smile, his love of storytelling, and a gentle, kind-hearted demeanor. He had recently moved to Baltimore to take a job with his longtime friend Porter Stansberry, working at Stansberry Associates Investment Research, part of a larger financial publishing company known as Agora, Inc. He was working as a videographer and writer, but those close to him said he dreamed of one day making movies. Rey had been married for just over a year, and he and Allison were planning their future. They had no known enemies, no financial troubles, and nothing in their lives suggested the horror to come. On May 16, 2006, Allison left town for a business trip. That afternoon, Rey was at home, talking to a colleague on the phone when a call came through on the other line. He answered it quickly, said a few words, and then suddenly left the house in a rush. That was the last time anyone saw Rey Rivera alive. The call that drew him out was traced to the switchboard of Stansberry Associates, his workplace. But no one ever came forward to admit they had made it. Even stranger, the company refused to cooperate fully with the investigation, placing lawyers between themselves and the police. As hours passed, then days, Allison and Rey's friends grew frantic. Flyers were posted, searches conducted, but there were no signs of him. Not a single clue, until a week later, on May 24th, a foul odor began drifting from a room at the Belvedere Hotel, a historic building in downtown Baltimore, just a short distance from Rey's last known location. A building maintenance worker climbed onto a rarely used roof area above the hotel's south annex, a space that housed a former conference room, and discovered a gaping hole in the metal roof. Inside that hole, the decomposing body of Rey Rivera. He had seemingly plunged from an incredible height, crashing through the roof with such force that it suggested a fall from the main rooftop, over 177 feet high. But here's the problem. The area where his body was found was not directly accessible by a straight drop. In fact, the trajectory required to land on that specific section of the roof was physically improbable, unless he had taken a running leap. But from where? Even more disturbing, no one at the hotel reported seeing him enter, and no security footage ever surfaced. Baltimore police eventually ruled Rey's death as undetermined, later leaning toward suicide. But the facts didn't add up. No clear access point. To reach the rooftop from which Rey could have jumped, he would have needed to pass through areas that were either locked, under surveillance, or required a key. No witnesses. Despite being a busy downtown area, no one saw or heard Rey fall, and no security cameras caught him entering the building. Then there's the note. Inside Rey's home, hidden behind a computer, investigators discovered a cryptic note. It wasn't a suicide letter, but rather a bizarre manifesto filled with Freemason references, film titles, names of powerful figures, and phrases that made little logical sense. The note began with a list of people Rey admired, most of them deceased, and appeared to be formatted almost like a screenplay. In it, he wrote about opening the gates and referred to a game that needed to be completed. Authorities ruled the note non-suspicious, though Allison strongly disagreed. She and Rey's family believed it pointed to something much deeper, perhaps paranoia, or worse, a hidden threat. One of the most persistent questions centers around Rey's employer, Porter Stansberry. Stansberry not only worked closely with Rey, but was also the one associated with the phone call that lured him from his home the night he vanished. Yet after Rey's death, Stansberry and his company immediately lawyered up and issued a gag order, preventing employees from discussing the case. To this day, Stansberry has made few public comments. For some, this silence only adds fuel to a theory that Rey may have uncovered something he wasn't meant to see. In 2020, the case returned to public consciousness thanks to Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries reboot. The episode on Rey Rivera sparked renewed interest and thousands of amateur investigations. But despite the attention, there has been no progress. The Baltimore medical examiner never changed the official classification from undetermined, and police have never reopened the case. Rey's wife, Allison, continues to seek answers. For her, the idea that Rey simply ended his life is incompatible with everything she knew about him. He was optimistic. He had just purchased movie editing software. He was planning for the future. So what happened that night in May 2006? We may never know. Rey Rivera's death remains a haunting echo, a question carved into concrete and steel. A man vanished, then reappeared in a place that defied physics, logic, and explanation. If you found Rey's story as haunting and thought-provoking as we did, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Echoes Untold, where history whispers, and we listen. Fact-checked note. All information in this video was fact-checked against credible sources, including the Baltimore Police Department case files and press releases. Unsolved Mysteries, Netflix, 2020. The Baltimore Sun Archives, 2006 to 2021. Interviews with Rey Rivera's wife and family. Various sources including CrimeCon panels and podcast appearances, public records related to Stansberry and Associates. Let the truth echo.